Today, Manchester City joined the list of elite clubs to have won the UEFA Champions League. They beat Inter Milan by a single goal. So those Lagos were some of the big stories in the last 7 or 8 days. Let's get into the thick of the action. I did say that today's conversation is going to be about me and you and I. Yes, we're going to be talking today about democracy. I was on the show earlier this morning with Sheriff Quadri. It was a useful conversation, actually, if you tuned in. If you didn't, well, it's on YouTube. You could go check it out. A very interesting conversation we had immediately after the broadcast by the president. It's another public holiday. It's Democracy Day. Quite a lot of Nigerians are not particularly excited. And I dare say you possibly have enough reasons not to be excited to celebrate democracy. But then again, let me reiterate what the president said, which is quite unique. Let's not take for granted where we are today. Because if you go back just a few years ago, things were horrible. Nigeria under military dictatorship, many would argue, wasn't the very best. Now, I know there's a counter argument. People would say, oh, well, maybe life was a little better. Inflation was not this high. Nigeria's currency was not as bad as it is compared to the global currency, that's the dollar, But how about human rights abuses? How about dictatorial tendencies where the military could just wake up and do whatever they wanted to do? Put you in prison. Like, literally, those of us, I'm using us now, I'm adding myself to that mix, even though I don't necessarily do that, that possibly will go on social media and rant and insult and say whatever we want to say. You dare not try that before we had democracy. You'll be locked up. Sometimes you'll be picked up and nobody will know your whereabouts. Lots of Nigerians have lost loved ones as a result of what I'm just trying to explain. It was brutal, especially under Sani Abacha. It was really brutal. Let's not talk about General Babangida before him. Let's not even talk about Major General Muhammadu Buhari in his 1.5 year or thereabout reign between December 31st, 1983 and August 27th, 1985. Let's not even talk about him. Let's not even go way back and talk about, military rule under Lieutenant General Olusegun Obasanjo, who ruled from, I think, February 14th. Yes, his former leader was killed February 13th. So he started his reign February 14th, 1976, until he gave way in 1979. Or is it Gowon that ruled for 9 years, 3 of which we were engaged in a bloody civil war that made us lose about 3 million people? Point is, as not so great as we've got in our democracy today, as much as there's so much that needs to be done, the president says, and I totally agree with him, that we should not take for granted what we have right now. There are rooms for improvement. Lots of things need to be done. Yes. But there was also a point in time in this country, in the early stages of the Fourth Republic, where the president could just wake up and decide, you know what, I don't like the face of the Senate president. Get out. Yeah. We had about 4 or 5 Senate presidents in quick successions, in between 1999 and 2007. From Chuba, the late Chuba Kadibo, to Vance, or is it Van, and went to what's his name again? The other 2 guys, their names skip my memory right now. But the point I'm trying to make is that from where we were when we started the Fourth Republic in 1999, it's a lot better, even though we are not at El Dorado just yet. Many people fought for this democracy. Many people gave their lives. Many people lost their lives, lost their livelihood, lost their families. Some were shot and maimed. There's so many of them that we don't even know them. We're not even talking about them. You may not like the likes of the presidential candidate, Omole Showore. You might not like him or his politics, but he's one of those who, as SUG president of the University of Lagos back in 1993, fought real hard. You know, we can't talk enough about New Peng and Pengerson, you know, or Workers' Union, who stood their ground and kept saying, no, Abacha, you cannot do this. Babangida, no, you cannot do that. You know, the likes of Pa Alfred Rewane, Nadeko, even though at a point in time, some people began to see Nadeko as just a regional movement. But that was not, you know, what it was from the very beginning. You had civil society groups from across the country, the north, the southeast, everybody trying to ensure that the mandate that was reportedly given to MKO Abiola on the 12th of June 1993, that it saw the light of the day. But it didn't happen. Thankfully, 5 years later, all of those things snowballed into the democracy that we now enjoy. President Bola Tinubu also took time, before I get into all of the things he said, he took time to tell us that we should not take these little mercies that we have for granted. Two of his opponents in the February 25th presidential election earlier this year also weighed in with their thoughts. Peter Obi, the presidential candidate of the Labour Party, says he's not convinced that, or rather he remains convinced that a new Nigeria is possible. That's like his mantra, you know. But he also says that our democracy is deeply troubled and the nation's destiny remains uncertain and precarious. And he does have a point. Because as much as we're celebrating Democracy Day today, we're not going to keep a blind eye on some of the shenanigans that happened in the elections of February 25th and March the 18th. It wasn't great. Many Nigerians were disappointed in almost same equal measure as many Nigerians were happy. But this is 2023. 30 years ago, almost 70 or more than 70% of Nigerians alive in 1993 and witnessed the election of 1993, 30 years after, will tell you that that election was the freest and the fairest election the country has ever had. Did it have issues? Definitely. Of course, you can't get a perfect election, not even in the US. It had issues, but majority of Nigerians believe that that election was free and fair and that the mandate was given to one person, MKO Abiola, who even defeated his opponent, Bashir Tofa, in his own state of Kano. Not many Nigerians who were alive to witness the 1993 elections can openly say the same thing about the February 25th elections of 2023, 30 years after. That tells you that as much as we want to celebrate democracy we have today, there are still questions that need to be answered. And if the country wants to move away from the area, from where we have found ourselves, to achieve that potential that a lot of Nigerians and people across the world believe that Nigeria has, then we have to do things right. We have to be able to conduct elections and not have almost everybody going to court to challenge those elections. We have to be able to conduct elections and a majority of the people, even if they lose, would agree that, okay, I contested well, I lost, and let's move on to the next election. But again, like the president said, if you are not going to agree when you lose, then you also maybe do not have reasons to celebrate when you win. I'm not really using his words exactly, but he said something to that light. The counter would be, well, we saw malpractices in the election, so we can't just accept it like that. Anyway, the court process is ongoing. We would have to wait until that is concluded. But why do we need to have people win elections and then inaugurated, and then processes challenging those elections are still ongoing? It doesn't seem fair, some would say. And I think I'm one of those who believe that. Why do we not have a situation where everything that needs to be done is done before the inauguration? Because let's face it, I always say this, the Nigerian presidency is one of the most, what's the right word now to use? Sorry, my English is failing me at this point in time. But what I'm trying to, is the most powerful, I think the second most powerful presidency in the world is the Nigerian president. The Nigerian president has enormous powers. Trust me, you don't want to know. Sometimes it feels like a monarchy. It feels like the Nigerian president is a king. But it shouldn't be so. There's too much concentration of power at the center such that the president can, do whatever needs to be done to retain power if he wants to. Yes, there are checks and balances. Obasanjo famously tried it in 2006. Didn't work for him, even though he denies it till today. But you know what I'm talking about. No, I'm not throwing shades at anybody on the show today. I'm just trying to, we need to be able to tell ourselves some truths. We need to look ourselves in the eyes, and tell ourselves that things need to be done properly and things need to be done well. As we're celebrating the little we've gained, let's also look at ourselves, and look at ways to improve what we have right now. Atiku Abubakar of the PDP says that for democracy to be fully fledged, it must constantly evolve away from the current practice where the governing elite determines the outcome of the elections. I'm sure he's also talking about himself. Yep, because he's part of that governing elite. He can't run away from it. He was part of the administration, even though he was a contestant, that conducted one of the worst elections ever in this country, such that the man who eventually won actually came out publicly to admit that, nah, this was not so great. Yes, I'm talking about the 2007 presidential election that Atiku was the vice president at the time, also contested, and the eventual winner, Letumaru Yaradua, confessed that, this is not good enough. And he initiated the process of reforms. Sadly, he couldn't finish it up before he died. President Jonathan tried to conclude it. And we had some semblance of, not so great, but some semblance of a credible election in 2015, which saw the sitting president lose election. But many would argue that 8 years after, it felt like we had gone a little backwards. Anyway, I've talked for too long. Let me open the floor. I told you that the show is going to be about you and I today. So let me go to the phone lines, and I would love to hear what you have to say about Democracy Day today, about where we were and where we are right now, and what you think we need to do to get to, we might not get to El Dorado, but, to improve on what we have. 0700 993 993 993. That's the number with which you can reach us. 0700 993 993 993. Would really love to hear from you. You could also call us if you're a woman on 01 465 7190. Hello.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening to you. It's the newsroom.
Yes. This is Mr. Moses from Oba.
Welcome.
Thank you. I like your analysis. The only area I disagree with you is the one that you said in 2007? That was the worst election we've ever had. I seem to disagree with you.
Okay.
The worst election we have ever had is 2023. That's my submission.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate your thought. I'm not sure I said the worst. I think I said one of. I think that's the word I use, one of. But anyway, I get your point. Hello, good evening. Welcome to the newsroom.
Hello?
Good evening. Welcome to the newsroom.
Okay. I just want to let you know that I'm enjoying your program.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay. Appreciate that. Hello, good evening. Welcome to the newsroom on Nigeria Info.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah, thank you. Concerning democracy, to me, I think we are moving more because we are moving slowly. Let me see, because we can never compare our democracy with Africa. With America. We have been there almost 20 years ago. So I think gradually, one day we shall meet by God's grace. And then concerning the president, for me.
Hello, are you still there?
So far, hello. For me, so far, I have tried. And then concerning election, nowhere in the world where we have perfect election.
True.
During the election, I was in the southeast. There was massive rigging. Massive rigging. And if they have come out to mention Tinubu, you are gone. You are dead. So I don't know what happened here in Lagos, but I was there in the southeast. There was massive rigging. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate your thought. Of course, that's the subject of litigations. Witnesses have been called by the people who are alleging, and of course, the people who are defending themselves will also call their witnesses. Hello, good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Ufoma Ibamona.
Good evening to you.
Mr. Kute calling from Igbeda.
Welcome.
I like your program every Monday evening.
Thank you very much.
From the assertion you just made that almost the worst election that happened in Nigeria is around 2011.
I said 2007.
Okay, 2007, yes. But myself, I'm going to disagree to you a bit. Because the worst election that happened in Nigeria is conducted in this 2023. This is the presidential election, yes. We came out, we the youth came out, we choose our own right presidential candidate. But it was otherwise. They told us to go to court. So, and we are still in the court. We know we must reclaim the mandate.
And if you don't,
it's going to be done.
No, I'm just,
the way they will do it is going to be done.
We're both saying the same thing. You're saying it's going to be done, and I'm asking, what if the petition tribunal doesn't give you the mandate and the Supreme Court doesn't do the same? What's going to happen?
What you understand is that we are like a hook in their neck.
It's one thing to allege, it's another thing to prove beyond reasonable doubt.
It's always say like that in Nigeria, alleging.
Okay.
But we all know what place about during that 2023 presidential election. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Appreciate that. I'll take another call. Hello, good evening.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening to you.
Good evening from this Ayo from Ikorodu.
Welcome.
Yeah, I think so far so good. Democracy, government of the people, and for the people. But there is Nigeria owns the reverse has been the case. It is government for the elite. We don't even matter to them at all. It's whatever they decide, they do. A clear example is the last election. Understand? Despite people's agitations and people, complaints, they ignore us and they did whatever they want to do. They tell you go to court. Understand? And the president has been sworn in. Who appoints judges? Understand? It is the president. So the judges are there to do the biddings of the president that appointed them.
Well,
that is what we find out.
That's a possible allegation that you might not be able to.
It's
because some of the
seen.
judges, or most of the judges, have also given judgments that don't favor the people who appointed them. So you can't necessarily say that.
Former you and I, thank God you've been in Nigeria for some time. Is there any presidential
I've been in Nigeria all my life.
Fine. Is there any presidential election that has been conducted and overturned in your own lifetime in Nigeria? Is there anyone?
Sadly, no.
No, that's it. No, but that of governorship, presidency, is any president has been elected in Nigeria. You even mentioned about 2007 as being one of the worst elections. What about the person was still there? He was sworn in, and he was as the president. See, what we need here in Nigeria, we don't need strong people. We need strong institutions. You understand?
I agree with you.
Everybody must be subject to rule of law.
I agree.
Here, the reverse is the case. We have secret cows. There's a lot of impunity in the country. You see, look at even the case in point now, Emefiele. I'm telling you, Emefiele was acting based on instruction. But now he's not being the scapegoat. He's not the fall guy. Now they pick him now. Those who were directing him to do what he was doing, they have been left scot free. You understand? So that is what we're telling you. But if we're having very strong institutions, whoever is involved, this is what you see in other countries now. Whether you're a president, whether you're a minister, by the time during your own tenure, and you've ate, the law will bring you back.
All right.
Come and answer this thing.
All right.
So we need very strong institutions, and the rule of law must be seen to prevail. Whoever aids. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I totally appreciate that. So one of the things that the president actually said, in his broadcast, he talked about the petrol subsidy removal and how he acknowledged that he knows Nigerians are going through pain and going through hardship. But he also promised that the gains from removing it will be invested back into education, into infrastructure, into health, to ease the pains of Nigerians. Some would say great promises, Others might argue, well, we don't hear them before. Anything don't change. We'll wait and find out. Well, just a few minutes before I came into the studio, the president signed into law the students' loan bill, which will see students who are not so wealthy or come from rich homes able to access loans that will help them in their education or possibly do other things. Of course, we'll get you more information on that one. It's one of the promises he made, by the way, during the campaign. But it was a bill that was passed by the National Assembly. He has just signed it into law. But one part of the president's comments actually, that doesn't sit well with me. And I'm talking about this now because earlier today I saw a headline, credited to the Nigeria Labour Congress, where they said we will no longer respect frivolous court injunctions. That's the headline from the NLC. And I'm wondering, today is Democracy Day. It's not in anybody's place, no matter how highly placed you are, to determine what is a frivolous or not order by a court. If you think an order given by a court of competent jurisdiction is not good enough, how it works in the rule of law is that you go to another court and have that judgment or that order upturned. Very simple. You appeal the decision. That's how it works in the rule of law, and that's how it works in democracy. Guess what? Part of the president's speech today, he also made mention of something to that effect. He talked about, let me quote him, "It is about the rule of law and vibrant judiciary that can be trusted to deliver justice and strengthen institutions. It has become imperative to state here that the unnecessary illegal orders used to truncate or abridge democracy will no longer be tolerated." And my question would be, does the president have the power to determine what is an illegal or legal court order? He is the president, yes. He is not the head of the judiciary. The last time I checked, there are three arms of government. There's the legislature. We have bicameral legislature in Nigeria, so there's the speaker and there's the Senate president. There's the judiciary, and the head of that arm of government is the Chief Justice of the Federation. And then there's the executive, where the president is the head. You don't jump from one part and go to the next one. I find it quite odd and troubling that on a day supposedly that is Democracy Day, both the Nigeria Labour Congress and Nigeria's president are making statements that don't necessarily support the rule of law. The NLC is saying we will no longer obey frivolous court orders. Hello? Are you now the judiciary to tell us which is a frivolous or not order? And the president says, no, we will no longer tolerate illegal orders to truncate democracy. Hello, President Bola Tinubu. Are you the head of the judiciary to determine what is a legal or illegal court order? No, that's not how democracy works, people. It's the other way around. Yes, I admit a couple of Nigerian judges, in connivance with politicians, have given some orders that you look at them and you ask yourself, shaking your head, what exactly is happening here? Agreed. But it's also not in your place to make that statement to say, this order is frivolous and I'm not going to obey it, or I'm not going to tolerate it. That kind of statement about not tolerating frivolous orders can only come from one person and one person alone, the Chief Justice of the Federation, not the NLC, not the President. And I think if we're going to move ahead and make this democracy that we all want to enjoy, we need to be able to make these simple things that look so simple, but they are not so simple. We need to be able to make them work and work perfectly. I'll take a few comments on our WhatsApp portal. This is a long one. It says, good evening. From honestly speaking, what we refer to as the democracy in Nigeria is bureaucratic in nature. Sadly, our past and present leaders have been leading by following the fundamental guidelines until the normal democratic governance. Thank you very much. Ufuma, I like your balance of presentation. Please keep it up and don't lose the balance. Do more of that because Nigeria is on a delicate balance. Yeah, I feel you. You didn't actually put your name. You said anonymous. But thank you very much for your thoughts. People, we do not have so much time on the show again. I honestly wish I had more time to continue. Maybe we could be doing this a lot more often, where Ufuma Egbamuno doesn't have a guest on the show, and I'm just doing all of the ranting and the talking. Maybe. I kind of enjoyed it today, though, and I enjoyed the fact that I got you in on the conversation and I got a couple of your thoughts. Thanks to my producers today, Onwoka Emmanuel and Precious Nena Okon. You all did a wonderful job. Thanks to everybody in the newsroom who have been doing a wonderful job. Today is a public holiday, but here we are at work, ensuring that, of course, you out there gets the latest of information. We'll do this again next week, Monday, from 6:15. Until then, have yourselves an amazing Democracy Day, and hopefully in another 30 years from now, when Ufuma is retired, by the way, we will not be ranting again about democracy not working in the country. Stay safe, people.
I want to assume that you would run because I want to give the listeners context for the conversation.
2019.